Welcome to another City Talk, the Zoom edition, as we continue to broadcast remotely during the global pandemic that I suspect many of you are familiar with. Say hello to Kinsey Casey, the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Pittsburgh, working out of the Mayor's office. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Should I call you Chief? I usually call the people who have Chief, in their title, Chief.
No, I'm just Kinsey.
Okay. So interesting background. Obviously, at one point in your career, you must have had something to do with the Obama administration. Just taking a wild guess.
Yeah, this is my office at my house, which I never actually thought I would be working out of, but now I've been here for, 5 months. So I keep moving pictures around so that it feels like I'm somewhere else.
But as we discussed in a previous interview, you worked for a time, among other things, out of the Department of Homeland Security.
I did. I worked for the Department of Homeland Security for a couple of years. I worked at the White House for a couple of years, and then I was at the Department of State for a couple of years.
And then Guy Costa decided to retire, and you became the new Guy Costa.
That's right.
Just long story short.
Right. Yeah.
So how are you coping with everything during the pandemic?
Well, it is a strange feeling. I am fortunate enough to be able to work from home. We obviously have a lot of essential employees that are out in the field every single day. But I am coping. I am happy to be, in my house working remotely.
So let the folks in the city of Pittsburgh know that while many of us, including yourself, are working at home, many have to go out into the field and do what they have to do. Who are those workers? What are some of the things that the services they continue to provide?
Well, obviously, our environmental services, your trash still gets picked up. And now that everyone's at home, there's even more trash that's being picked up because, there's also those folks who are cleaning out their basements, their attics, all the projects they've been putting off for a long time now that people are at home. Plus, people are living at home. So that certainly necessitates more trash. We have all of our DOMI inspectors, all public works crews are out. The potholes are still being patched. Debris is still being mowed. All of those services are still happening. There's still litter that's being collected in the central business districts and the parks. All of that is still happening. So we still have a lot of employees that are out in the field these days. And the Department of Public Works still has all sorts of other people out as well? Absolutely. Most of their staff is out in the field these days. Our parks crews, our streets crews, our construction crews, all those projects are still happening. So, the facilities guys are still out there. Plumbing still breaks. So, they're still out there. Everyone is out in the field taking all the precautions, but there are a lot of folks that are essential that have been working every day. Yeah, you mentioned people are even throwing out more trash because they've got more time to hang around the house and decide what's trash. I just threw away an ancient vacuum cleaner the other day, and I must say it was picked up with great efficiency, and boom, it disappeared like it was never there. So you're doing an awesome job, and so are the environmental services and the people who pick up the trash and everybody else. You're great. Bag all of your trash very tightly for all of them, please and thank you. Say that again? Bag it tightly? Bag tightly for them. Yeah, 35-gallon cans. Bag everything very tightly for them. Make their job easier. It's a tough one, especially if it's really hot. So are there some scofflaws out there who are loosely bagging the trash? There are, and right now, as you know, it's time for university students to move back in. So Oakland has seen a lot of trash these days. All right, and so loose trash means the bag might open or something might spill out. Okay. Yep. And these are things you've become, and I'm guessing, an expert on since you took this job that you probably didn't know much about before. I knew nothing about that before, but yes, I'm learning a lot about it these days. So how is the having to work at home complicated your job? How is it much different than it used to be? Well, I'd much rather be out in the field, seeing what folks are doing. I would much rather be working with people in meetings and actually seeing them in person than on video. So it certainly is more complicated. Technology does exist, so it is entirely possible to work from home. But it would be much more fun and pleasant if I actually got to see people in person and, got to shadow some crews and do all of the stuff that I was hoping I would get to do this summer. And obviously, as the chief operating officer, you're in charge of a lot, but can you give people an idea, like if you had to give a paragraph or two as a job description, tell us, for the uninitiated, what your duties are? Sure. So I work in the mayor's office and I work with the departments of Public Works, the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, and the Parks and Rec Department. So I work with all of those folks and all of the various things that they do. And then I also work with the Parking Authority and Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authorities. So I'm sort of the liaison to them and help manage all of the things that need to be coordinated with the city.
That is quite a handful. And I know Parks and Rec has had to shut down the Healthy Active Living Centers. Some people know them as senior centers temporarily, but they're still distributing food, as I understand it.
That's right. So the Healthy Active Living Centers and the recreation centers are shut down, but we are doing food distribution from them. And as we move into fall, I think it will probably be even more intense, given that students are probably not going back to school full time. So we will be distributing even more meals as we move into the fall, in all likelihood.
How are things at home? Is there anyone you're ready to kill, or are you staying sane? How are things that you're at the home front?
I am staying sane. I am very fortunate to live in a house with 2 floors. So my newest coworker, my husband, works downstairs and I work upstairs. And my other coworker, my dog, sleeps through most of the day, but he does enjoy joining Zoom and conference calls and Teams calls with his loud barks occasionally. He's not very well trained.
Is the upstairs the superior area and you had to fight for it or flip a coin or anything?
Oh yeah, well, we came home first, so I got the office, and my husband is, stuck at the dining room table.
Well, plus you are the chief operating officer. There has to be some deference. I mean,
the office I never thought I would spend any time in, but now I'm here all day.
So are there projects that have to be on hold now that just, have to wait until things open up again?
We've tried to restart most projects. So, if it comes to building a new playground, if it comes to new construction projects, all of those we've, started to move through. The things that are really on hold, unfortunately, are the swimming pools. We didn't open those this summer. We do have the spray parks open, but the swimming pools, we just couldn't reasonably safely open. And then as you mentioned, the Healthy Active Living Centers and the recreation centers are all closed this summer as well, and will likely remain closed through the fall too. So those are the things that are sort of on hold. But for the most part, we are managing through the pandemic and trying to, serve the residents of the city as best we can, including taking all the safety precautions to keep our employees safe.
And what does all that involve, the safety precautions?
Well, every morning they get to do health checks. So there's a list of screening questions that everyone should be doing every morning, just to identify if they have any symptoms. Even in environmental services, we actually have a company there that's taking everyone's temperature so that we can keep our workers safe. And then the same protocols that you've heard a million times over, keeping 6 feet social distance, wearing your masks, which I know when it's 90 degrees outside is not very pleasant. But they have really shown that masks do help. So keeping your masks on, keeping your social distance, washing your hands. So we're doing all of those things. And then, if we do get a positive case, which unfortunately we have had a few, making sure that anyone that has been exposed is quarantined so that we don't see an outbreak.
Are you able to get out and get some exercise for yourself every now and then?
Well, my husband and I do sometimes fight a little bit over who gets to walk the dog.
Oh.
For a while there, he was getting 3 walks a day. He doesn't like the heat, so now it's just 2 walks a day. But that's really the only time I'm out of the house, unfortunately.
Huh. And have you gone through all of the possible Netflix or cable shows that you could ever want to see?
Yeah, although I don't watch that much TV. I have been reading more, at least trying. It distracts me from the news. And I've been trying to encourage everyone else to practice some work-life balance, because as you know, when you work from home, work is just in the other room. So it's very easy to keep going all day, all night. So, trying to practice a little work-life balance and trying to encourage others to do the same.
Do you recommend any good books to read?
Well, I just started reading Molly Ball's biography of Nancy Pelosi, which is fascinating. I love biographies, so that would be my recommendation, because it's what I'm reading right now.
I'm a nonfiction guy myself, and I get grief a lot from my people who are like, "You're limiting yourself, and you should be reading all the greats and who write fiction." But I just got done reading Woody Allen's book, which I would recommend unless you hate Woody Allen, and then I would not recommend it. But then who would read it?
Right back.
Yeah.
Amazon loves my house.
Oh, do they? Do you also get groceries delivered?
We haven't yet, although I will say I was at Chief Gilman's house yesterday and he had his groceries delivered and I was very jealous. So maybe we will.
And did Chief Gilman still appear to be holding up well? He's not?
He was holding up. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, as well as one does on like a
Right,
Sunday afternoon.
right. We talked to him recently, but you just never know. You're supposed to check in on everybody every once in a while, or at least so I'm told.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there anything you can't wait to get back to? Like, boy, if and when this thing ends or settles down, the first thing I'm going to do is...
The first thing I want to do is go out and shadow the crews. I was dying to go out with a paving crew this summer. I wanted to go out with the parks crews. I did get to shadow environmental services before the pandemic hit, so I got to collect trash for a day, which was recycling, actually. I was on a recycling truck. I even got to hang out the side. They were very nice to me.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I want to hang on the side of the recycling truck.
Yeah, it's great. You have to pick up recycling, though. You can't just ride on the truck. You actually have to work.
Oh, well. And were there far too many people who put their recycling in the little blue bags, thinking that they want those, but they don't really like the little blue bags? Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of blue bags these days.
Yeah.
Because grocery stores won't let you bring your own bags. So there's a lot of blue bags out there. But yes, same rules apply for recycling. Make sure it's tightly bagged, not in a container larger than 35 gallons.
Tightly bagged.
Yeah. Don't let things fall out.
No, I understand. Did you find a lot of scofflaws in your search, or were most people complying fairly well when you were riding along the side of the truck?
Most people complied fairly well. Although I will tell you, and this is the advice they gave me, is those cereal boxes, man, if they are not in a bag, they are really slippery. So, people break down their cereal boxes.
Yeah.
And put them out for recycling. But if they're not in a bag, they are actually very slippery. You gotta throw them in.
But is that cardboard and you're supposed to recycle that?
Yeah, you can recycle them.
Okay. I know they don't want those clamshell things like that takeout food gets in. Yeah. People think they want them, but they don't.
I know. No more clamshells. Sorry.
All right. Well, that's nice that the first thing you're going to do, if and when you're able to, is personally thank everybody. But are you going to go to like Aruba or France or,
I don't know. There's a lot of work to be done. Once this is over, once, there's a vaccine, or once we're all allowed to go back to whatever the new normal is, there's a lot that needs to be done. And I'm looking forward to it, but I don't think it's coming anytime in the near future.
You seem like you're still enjoying your job and that you're into it despite the circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. I learn new things every day. I wish that, instead of seeing lists of our, assets in parks, that I was actually getting to see them in person. But, I'm still learning a lot and very much enjoying the job.
All right. Well, I'm probably keeping you from something much more important, so I suppose we can wrap things up. Do you have any final thoughts, final words of wisdom?
No, thanks for having me on. I hope everyone stays safe and healthy and follows all the protocols and wears your mask. Everyone should wear their mask.
Kinsey Casey, Chief Operating Officer of the City of Pittsburgh, who I occasionally sometimes accidentally call Casey Kinsey.
2 first names. Very common.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
When we come back, we'll talk to Councilman Lavelle. Stay with us. Welcome back to City Talk. Say hello to City Councilman Dan Lavelle. Councilman, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I love the brick wall technique. It looks like you're about to do some stand-up comedy, at the Improv.
Not quite.
All right. Well, we'll save that for another time. So how are you holding up during the global pandemic?
I'm holding up well. The family's doing well for the most part. All are well. Our biggest challenge right now is our children. We have 2 young children, and getting ready to get them situated for online school for the next year is probably the most challenging thing we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, were you among those who just found out recently that you'll be that'll be remotely for at least, I think, 9 weeks, something like that?
Yeah, we were debating whether or not we were going to send them back regardless. Part of our concern was, even if they were able to go back, at some point it was going to get shut down. And so we were leaning to go online from the very beginning. But now PPS made it official that at a minimum for the first 9 weeks, it'll be online. But I don't see how you start 9 weeks and then open back up when it's colder and flu season is coming around. So I anticipate the whole year at this point.
How about that? So do you have to play, you and your wife also have to play school teacher sometimes, or are they able to do everything online?
No, we absolutely have to step in to play school teacher. I have no faith that if left to their own devices, that they would sit in front of a computer screen for the entire time. So we're trying to work it out. We're also in conversation with a couple other families about creating a pod where maybe 6 to 8 children circulate between 3 or 4 homes throughout the week, and each parent then takes time to dedicate to ensure that the kids are actually online, getting their work done and everything else.
That's very interesting. You think you'll be able to put that together?
My wife is really leaning towards it. There was a meeting last night actually of a couple parents who all came together to start talking about logistics. One of the challenges is, how do we all ensure that we're all playing by the same rules so that the children are safe, the parents are safe. So we're trying to figure out logistically what it would look like. Do people have areas outside their homes where they could set up tables for sort of the virtual classroom? And we're also talked to a potential teacher who's currently not working about, could they potentially come in and monitor the children for us?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of interesting improvising going on in all areas of life because of the situation we're all in. For those who don't live in your district or are unfamiliar with it, tell us what your district encompasses.
Sure. So I serve District 6, which starts in Oakland. So I have parts of Oakland, the Hill District, Uptown, Downtown. Then I have parts of the North Side, Central North Side, Manchester, California, Kirkbride, Chateau, and Perry Hilltop area.
Well, that is a far and wide-ranging district.
It's one of the most diverse districts in the city. I have everything from some of the poorest to some of the wealthiest and everything in between.
Well, I live on Perrysville Avenue, and in the interest of full disclosure, you are my councilman, so and you're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
So what are the challenges that have been unique to the pandemic? Stuff that you maybe had to put on hold or haven't been able to go as far as you wanted to because of limitations?
Well, we've had to put certain projects on hold throughout the district. It's actually been interesting how we've been trying to work through a lot of the projects. You may know in Fineview, we recently opened up a new playground that we had refurbished in Fineview area, and that work was able to continue. But as we look at new capital projects, a lot of those will probably have to be put on hold, in part because we're looking at about $100 million shortfall due to lack of tax revenue. And so as a city, we're trying to commit to finishing all the projects we've started, but new projects are probably going to be hard to come by right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. Are you able to get out much? Are you pretty much homebound most of the time?
For the most part, I'm homebound. However, we have made ways to get out. So one of our projects while being home was the kids are going to learn how to ride bikes. And so we did. It took about 2 weeks actually to get them comfortable, and then about a day to get them off their training wheels. So now the kids like to get out and we'll just go bike around the neighborhood. We've taken some very long walks where we would just leave the house and one kid would say, let's go right down the street, and then we get to the next intersection. So we try to get out to the greatest extent possible.
During this quarantine time, you managed to pass by having Zoom council meetings. Correct me if I'm saying this correctly, Black Pittsburgh Matters, some historic and I think important legislation. Tell us about that.
Sure. And I believe it is historic and both critical. So it's Black Pittsburgh Matters, and within the Black Pittsburgh Matters legislation, it speaks to a number of areas. So Black communities matter in terms of rebuilding and investing in those communities. Black health matters, Black sustainability and Black wealth matters. We need to invest in more job opportunities, more entrepreneurship opportunities. But it's really looking at everything that's occurring nationally and saying, hey, look, we've already known the disparities that unfortunately exist within our city. Let's now take this sort of tragedy that has been a long time and let's make some good out of it. And let's really begin to invest in the Black community.
And I suppose since you just passed it, it's hard to tell whether it's going to have much of an effect, but obviously you'll be monitoring that as time goes on.
Yeah, and I believe it will. One of the other pieces of legislation we passed prior to the Black Pittsburgh Matters legislation was creating a commission on racial equity. And so we're in the process now of beginning to put that commission together. That passed as well. And so that'll really be where the work gets done to ensure that these pieces of legislation happen.
And you're also a member of the Urban Redevelopment Authority.
Yes, sir, I am.
For those who don't know what that is, tell us what that is and what your role is on that board.
So I sit on the board, and essentially the Urban Redevelopment Authority is really the development agency, the development arm for the city. Historically, the URA was involved in large developments, both good and bad. But now we've taken a focus on really trying to do neighborhood redevelopment. So looking at neighborhood business districts, housing. We really want to move away from sort of let's invest in skyscrapers, but let's really invest in core neighborhoods and really begin building them out. And we're also doing so with an equitable lens.
And what do you mean doing with an equitable lens? Just trying to make sure it's all fair and that everybody gets a piece of the pie?
Yes. So ensuring that small developers are able to participate as well as the large one, ensuring that small minority and women-owned businesses are also able to participate in the redevelopment of our city.
So tell us a little bit about the Daniel Lavelle story, where you're from originally, where you went to school, how you ended up in government.
Sure. So I was born and raised here in Pittsburgh, graduated from Shinley High School, went on to Kent State University in Kent, Ohio, graduated from Kent and actually was working in Ohio for about a year before I was going to transition and actually go to Florida State for graduate work. However, there was a gentleman named currently he's State Representative Jake Wheatley. But at the time, he was working for a former city councilman, Salud Dean. And while I was still living in Ohio, Jake called and said, "Hey, do you still have a general interest in government?" I had met Jake on one of my summer breaks, and we had talked. And I said, "Yeah, I'm generally interested." He said, "Well, why don't you come back and interview for my position? I'm getting ready to leave." And so I did, and I came back, and Salud then offered me the position. And after accepting it, I then drove past my parents to let them know I was moving back home.
But since you'd planned to go to Florida, I'm guessing that news was quite a surprise.
It was. When I walked into their office, they were, just shocked to see me, like, what are you doing here? And then I shared the news with them, which they found really, really interesting.
Were you disappointed all the time, thinking that your winters would have been a lot warmer?
Not really. I was looking forward to the Florida weather, I can tell you. And at the time, when I left, I was one of the individuals who said I'll probably never move back to Pittsburgh. But I'm back and I'm raising my family and I'm glad I did.
So you were a legislative aide then, I assume, or a chief of staff for Councilman Udine?
I was a legislative aide. Then eventually, after working for him, went to work for an organization out of DC, Americans for Democratic Action. I was their Western Pennsylvania political field organizer. And then after working for them for a while, I then actually went to work for State Representative Jake Wheatley. And then after working for Representative Wheatley for a number of years, ultimately decided to run for office myself.
And that was a first time experience, obviously. How weird was that, just becoming a public figure, a political figure?
It was a transition. I enjoyed working behind the scenes and said that's where I wanted to be. But it was really my grandfather who ultimately inspired me to run. I was sitting in his living room, sort of giving a long diatribe about the state of affairs and what was wrong and what needed to be better. And he essentially said, "Well, you think you know so much, go do something about it." And so I said, "Okay, I will," and decided to run. And it was challenging, but my family was supportive. My wife went door knocking with me. We won by, I think it was 222 votes I won by my first election.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even door knocking, I'm sure that was interesting and something I assume you hadn't done before, and suddenly you're in the middle of all that.
Yeah, so door knocking is actually what I enjoy the most about campaigning. I actually get to talk to people direct. Sometimes people have misconceptions that I get to clear up at the door. Sometimes people are upset and I get to hear what they're upset about. Occasionally I get thanked for my work, but I actually enjoy that part the most. The debates, I don't like the debates because we just say the same thing over and over again. But actually getting out, being able to talk to people, I actually enjoy that part.
Interesting. I guess nobody's going to be doing, who's ever running for whatever, they're not going to be doing much door knocking currently, I would assume.
No, unfortunately not. I know Representative Wheatley, he was up for re-election this past cycle, and in the middle of his campaign, he's had to suspend all door knocking activity.
But nobody's going to kill anybody in your household, right? You're staying sane and you're not ready to, strangle anybody?
To the best of our abilities. It can get tense at times. Occasionally, both me and my wife will yell at the kids to go outside. Often kids will run by when they know I'm on meetings intentionally just to be on the screen. And occasionally they're doing whatever they're doing and making an awful lot of noise. And so it makes opportunities like this hard. But by and large, we've done pretty well through it all.
Well, congratulations on that. Are you doing anything more that you didn't used to do, like reading or cooking or, I don't know, some sort of hobby?
Not really. I am catching up on some reading that I like to do. I like to read, so I've been catching up on that. I subscribe to the New Yorker magazine, and so I'm probably about 8 months behind, but I'm actually catching up on a lot of good articles. But we're also trying to, do things with the family, so the kids now help cook more. My daughter in particular has taken a liking to learning how to cook. So,
is she going to be a good cook?
To be determined. She likes it and she enjoys it. Although one day I put her in charge of the seasoning. I can't remember what we were making, but it turned out extremely, extremely spicy.
Oh, well, yeah, trial and error, live and learn.
Yeah.
Is there something, once all of this ends, if and when that ever happens and life returns somewhat to normal, the first thing I'm going to do is, this.
Oh, wow. Go visit family. I think that's been the most challenging part in all of this. My mother-in-law actually got COVID. My mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and my father-in-law all had it.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, they fully recovered.
Oh, good.
My sister-in-law and father-in-law actually had no symptoms, but it took a toll on my mother-in-law. It took her a while to recover. But getting out and going to visit family, I think that's probably number one on our list.
So two of them had no symptoms, but did they test just because they'd been around people who did have symptoms and then and they found that out? How about that?
Yeah.
That's obviously everybody's made this point, but that's one of the strange things about the virus, that some people have no symptoms and other people just attacks.
Yeah, it is one of the strange things, which also limits one of the things you mentioned, hobbies. One of the things I really like to do in my own free time is go fishing. And so I have an uncle that I've grown up fishing with, and he's just afraid to come out even fishing with us, just because you just never know who you're going to run into contact with and everything else.
Yeah, and I suppose if you don't want to have a contact with people and you don't want to be perceived as rude either, like, get the hell away from me. I know I haven't seen you in 10 years, but get lost.
Yeah, so it's a challenge, but we're working our way through. But getting some good fishing in, going to visit family as soon as we're able to do so safely, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Are you a good fisherman? Is there any particular kind of fish you're looking for, or is it just put a worm in the water and see what happens?
I am a good fisherman. We'll go bass fishing. Sometimes we'll go catfishing. Sometimes I have family down in Maryland, so we'll go down to the Chesapeake, go out on the bay, and do some fishing down there as well. For the most part, I'll catch anything that's able to be caught.
All right. Well, Councilman Lavelle, you probably got something more important to do than continue this conversation, but I can't thank you enough for taking the time during this pandemic. And it's good to see that you're sane and that no one in your family has killed anybody else yet, and you're doing well considering.
Thank you very much. And I do have to just remind everyone, we are still in a pandemic, and please do everything you can to social distance, wash your hands, and stay safe.
Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you in the near future in person.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. That is this Zoom edition of City Talk. We will see you guys next time.